And my mother, I remember her saying something that nobody has said to their daughter. Don't be an actress. What do you want to be an actress for? Acting, schmacting. You're a comedian. Who says that to a daughter? Or you're a comedian. She actually said that to me.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a Her Story of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. This episode is brought to you by the entertainment payroll company Extreme Reach. They have the most comprehensive suite of tools and services to support all areas of media and content creation, from tax incentive support to accounting software and payroll services. I've seen their software. It's beautiful. If you're producing film and television, you should call them and tell them I sent you. And as a bonus, they are committed to including and promoting women, and I could not be happier that they are a sponsor of this podcast. Today, I had the immense pleasure of speaking with Ellen Gerstein. Ellen is an award-winning writer, director, producer, and actor. She is a member of Women in Film, the Alliance of Women Directors, LA Film Team, Film Independent, the Actors Studio, and SAG-AFTRA. Apart from having 1 million credits in film, television, and theater, she has also worked as a psychotherapist and a stand-up comic. Without sounding too biased, this is one of my very favorite interviews. If you have ever studied acting in New York, this will take you back. In fact, while I was editing this, I was texting all my old friends from college as I was getting very nostalgic for my New York Strasberg acting teachers. Ellen is delicious, and prepare yourself. You are about to fall in love with her. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. I just put in some great coffee tumblers and mugs. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. In fact, if you're trying to listen to it on a podcast platform and it's not there, let me know so I can make sure that it is there. And if you haven't already, check out our other 2 podcasts, The Kiss My Age Show, which is where women of a certain vintage, grown-ups, talk about anything and everything and all the things that matter, hosted by Lasta Drakovic, Karen Samuelson, and me. And if you fall into that category, please join the Facebook group and join in the conversation. And Exit 38. It's a show where Emily Van Dyne and Sean Patrick Hughes, who seem to be opposites from a political perspective, discuss the issues of the day while trying to find common ground. All right, here's my conversation with Ellen Gerstein. Have a listen. You are a working actor, acting teacher, and lots of other things.
Yes, I'm a writer, director, and producer.
All the things.
And I bring the bagels to the set.
And craft service.
Which is a must.
So I was looking through your IMDb, and you've been on basically every single show. So we can't even list them all. Can we talk about, can we go to the beginning? How did you, A, know you were an actor, and then get into it in the first place?
The first place is I was raised to have a very secure job. That would be, in those days, a teacher, or I forgot the other one, actually. A teacher or something. Anyway.
Secretary?
No, it wasn't that. Something else. Anyway, and my mother was very judgmental, and everything had to look right and do right and, get married and, to do all that.
Behave yourself.
Yes. Something happened to me when I was very young because the marriage thing I didn't see. And I was born in the Bronx, and my whole family was born in New York. My dad was from the Lower East Side, my mom was from the Bronx. But when I was very young, they moved to Miami because my mother's sisters moved to Miami and she wanted to be with her family. So I was raised in Miami. And I knew one thing. I had to get out of Miami.
I know, you're such a New Yorker.
I know. So I say coffee. You can't stay in Miami and say coffee. Anyway.
Unless you're going to be in Boca at the retirement community.
Exactly. So I knew that marriage with the white fence, no. Teacher, I don't think so. Stay in Miami, So I wanted to get out. Anyway, I went to college in Georgia. I was like the first live Jewish person in Georgia. And my roommate's father was a member of the KKK, and she kept wanting me to come home and meet her family, which was not on the agenda. And so I got through Georgia and went straight to New York and became a social worker for the welfare department. And I liked that job very much. And you really couldn't do that much, but I tried to do as much as I could. And I stayed at 6 years doing that. As I was a social worker, I was in therapy, as every Jewish lady was, or person. I was in therapy with Dr. James Spingarn, and I remember saying to him, I really want to be an actor. And I was afraid to even say it. I wasn't raised, and I never really was shown anything in that
Yeah, who
arena.
does that? Is
Right,
a therapist
exactly.
like you are crazy.
No. I said, this is what I want to do. I said, but I'm afraid I'll fail. And Dr. James Spingarn said words I'll never forget, and I say to my friends, he said, isn't that something? First of all, you don't want to be 80 years old saying that same sentence to you. I really want to be an actor at 80. And he said, and let me talk about success in one sentence. Success is doing what you want to do. That is success. So I think you should go ahead and study acting, which I immediately went to Strasberg Institute, and I auditioned for Lee's class, and I got into his class. And then was the frightening phone call home. So
Guess what I'm doing?
Yes. And it was very, very funny because my mom told my dad to get on the extension, they had... And most of
You gotta hear this.
Right. And most of the conversation was not to me. It was my mother saying to my father, she's crazy, Al. Say something to her. Her whole life is gone now. Why did we send her to college? You have to tell her. And then my mom would...
We failed.
And my mom would always get Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin confused. So she said to me, Mike Griffin. I watch him religiously. Has Maureen Stapleton on one day. Believe me, she said, Ellen, I know about this. She goes to Park Slope to go acting class Wednesday night. Where is she Thursday? Back at her job. Because I said, I'm quitting being a social worker, and I'm becoming a barmaid. Yes.
The horror.
Which I know, and I knew nothing about drinking, nothing. I'm like, who gets to drink with the cubes? That type of... So anyway, so that's what I did, and I studied with Strasberg for 5 years with him.
Well, you went to the right place.
Yes, I went to the right place. I was very excited. And I studied script analysis with Stella Adler. Acting was Strasberg, and script analysis was Stella Adler.
Now, could you tell the two of them that you were studying with the other one?
No, I did not, because they had that big rival with each other. Every big teacher didn't like Milton Casalis didn't like if you were at Strasberg. He wanted you to be a Scientologist, and everyone had their own modality.
Their territory.
Yes, their territory. Yeah, but I loved it. And I became a member of the Actors Studio, which I'm on the audition committee.
Now that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I love it. It's like a home. It's where you can work out, which you should all the time, and keep oiled up and your chops up. So you bring scenes in. Martin Landau was the head with Mark Rydell, and then Marty just passed this last year. So Salome Jens and Lou Antonio head it now. But I go there and I do my work.
So once you're in it forever.
Yes, once you're in it. I teach script analysis there because it's so important.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. For the actors, because is that something that you think is being lost?
I think that people don't realize how important it is. All the information they can get from the writer, everything he gives you, from the littlest thing as, and I'll give you an example, he might write that the character says, I'm happy. And then he might write, I'm very happy, which is different than I'm happy. So every little thing he says and gives you is a jewel. So that is your roadmap. And then you take your acting choices and make them on top of this roadmap. So you could be a brilliant actor, but if you don't have your roadmap, you're doing wonderful choices that may have nothing to do with the script. And it also gives you confidence. It gives you a sense of power. And I do a thing where I have two people sit in two chairs and they just cold read a scene. Then we do very specific script analysis. And then they read the scene again. It's not like they rehearsed it, it's amazing, the difference. And they should always do it because you have a sense of power because you understand so much.
Now, is it more than just marking the beats?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's totally more. Everything. There's nothing general. Everything has to be specific. So from every little jewel that is given to you, you know. So, and I love it. People call me from different states if they are doing a film or something, and they'll call me and they'll send me, this is what I'm working on, and I'll call them and I'll tell them script analysis, go through every little thing. and then they feel terrific. It's amazing. A lot of people, because I teach and coach, a lot of people will come in for an audition and they sort of walk in and they can't even stand straight. They don't, by the time they're out, they're like, yeah. So, and it's great. It's fabulous.
It's a transformation.
Yeah, and I know they'll have the best audition they can give, and that's their job.
Fantastic. Okay, so you studied for a while. At what point did you start auditioning and working?
Well, back in the day, see, nowadays, a lot of people come and they just want to get their pictures and agent and get out there and audition.
Yeah.
They don't feel studying's that, they figure they'll learn on the
figure it
set. Yeah, on the set, which is so not true, So director has so much to do. They're not there to teach you acting, that's for sure. So for 2 years, I did nothing but study. I never auditioned for 2 years. That's how we did it back in the day.
And that's part of the Strasberg method, isn't it?
Well, you
do a
can
show.
audition if you want to, but for some reason, 2 years was that unspoken thing. And you still study, even though you start to audition after 2 years. You still always study. You never stop studying because you can always learn and go further.
But I think it takes that long to put the technique together so you're not just a mess.
Absolutely. Because, somebody will come and maybe study for a month or two. That's not long enough to do, or they'll flit somewhere else. And you can go to other teachers, sure, but first learn what you need to learn from who you're studying. Anyway, we would do 2 years before we got pictures made. That was the thing. And then you would start to go to cattle calls. We had huge cattle calls. To know what it was like to walk into a room. From the moment you walk in to say hello, that's part of it.
Yeah.
How you present yourself, and then audition, and then leave. I had a friend, she was great, she was a stand-up, because I did stand-up for years, and I taught all the stand-ups how to act. And she thought that going into an audition was where you get a new friend and gab. And yeah, right, exactly. And they'd have to practically get her out of the room. So, and I tried.
As they're writing down, she's a handful.
Yeah, right, this is not going to work. So, right. So, and then I had to tell her, this is not what it's about.
Yeah. Show up, do your job.
Exactly, and get out. So, right,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what was your first job?
My first job was very interesting. I did a lot of theater. I've always done a lot of theater. But my first paid gig, this is an interesting story, was called Jokes Your Folks Never Told You. And it was actually a film with some dirty jokes. And a friend of mine was producing it and directing it, their company. And I didn't have a SAG card yet. I had gone to Rachel, who was a psychic in Simi Valley, because most of the people at the Actors Studio were going to Rachel. It was a fad. I went to Rachel. I liked her a lot, and she did the tea leaves where you look in the tea leaves. I asked her, do you really look in the tea leaves? And she said, no, but people get nervous if I just look at them, so I look in the tea leaves. And she told me, when you leave here, and back in those days, there were no cell phones. You go to a payphone and you call your service, who would tell you if you got any messages, and usually they said no messages, and you cried. But anyway, she said...
That was the process.
Yes, that was the process. So you called your service before 5 o'clock. You got a job, but after 5, they'll move on. I called my service, and I swear to you, I'm telling you the truth, my service said, here is a message from the producer of Jokes Your Folks Never Told You. Please call them before 5. And I was a
Rachel was good.
Was very good. And I was a teacher, and I taught these kids some type of joke. I don't even remember the joke. I don't even know if I understood it. I think it was a dirty joke. And I told my mother, I got a job on a film about teachers. And so, right. But
finally, you're a teacher.
Right, you're right, exactly. Be happy. And I got my SAG card, and that was my first job.
So you had moved to LA by that point.
Yes, I had studied with Strasberg in New York. He was 6 months in New York, 6 months in LA. I'd never been to LA. So I was studying, and I had a friend, Aixa, who was studying too. She was brilliant. She said, I'm going to LA to study, so I don't have to wait 6 months for him to come back. I said, well, if you can do that, I can do that too. So we said, well, let's go together. At the time, Strasberg was on Hollywood Boulevard. Now it's on Santa Monica. And there was a place called the Montecito Hotel. It's now condos or something. So we stayed there in a little room with my dog, Leroy, and we studied. We studied the Monday, Wednesday class. There were two a week that you go. But we sat into the Tuesday, Thursday class. So we were constantly studying and doing our work, very serious. And then I went back to New York. I lived on 14th Street and 7th Avenue at the time, and went back and forth. And then finally I realized you have to settle someplace.
Yeah, how are you earning a living during this time?
And so I was a waitress and a barmaid, and very tight, And then I settled, LA had flowers and
Sunshine.
sunshine. And I used to walk a lot. I know I got arrested a few times for loitering, and I was just trying to walk to a friend's. And so,
Yeah, they don't walk in LA. That's
no,
discouraged.
I know. And the cop stopped me. I'll never forget this. And he said, "You're loitering." And I said, I'd been walking an hour because it was nothing for me,
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I'm visiting a friend." And he was writing me a ticket for loitering. I didn't understand it.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I remember I had I used to sell candles also on the streets in New York, which I made candles. And they were beautiful, by the way, and a fifth floor walk-up. And then I would sell candles, and my dad bought me a VW bus so I could put all the candles in it. And it wasn't automatic, it was, so I had to learn how to drive a stick shift. But I took it over to LA, and I remember as soon as I got out of the driveway, it was a yellow VW bus in those days, the 60s and 70s, I was arrested for something. I don't even remember what it was, because I guess I looked like a hippie, I had very long hair and a yellow VW bus. It didn't fly.
Do you wish you still had that bus?
Yes, I do. I do. But yeah, it was interesting those days,
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell me about the stand-up comedy.
Oh yeah.
'Cause that kind of makes you a unicorn a little bit.
So, yeah, my entire, probably not now, but my entire family was very funny, naturally. They just were funny.
I'm getting that sense.
So are you? And my mother, I remember her saying something that nobody has said to their daughter. Don't be an actress. What do you want to be an actress for? Acting, schmacting. You're a comedian. Who says that to a daughter? Or you're a comedian. She actually said that to me. So
That's hilarious.
yeah, so I took a class, and
Like that she could get behind?
yeah, that she could get behind. It was crazy. So I took a class, and I started doing comedy. And in fact, my parents came to visit, and I had a wonderful show at a terrific room on Santa Monica. It was very deco, and my friend was the MC, and it was a huge room. And I was doing very well with comedy. And my parents came, and of course, part of my act was about my parents. And then I had them stand up and take a bow because they were in the room after I, completely made fun of them. And so, and then afterwards, my dad was crying. And he said, I always wanted to do that. He said, "You're a professional. You're a comedian. You're wonderful. You're so funny." I said, "Yeah, but Dad, I got that from you and Mom. You guys are so funny." And my sister, we were all very funny. And any one of us could have done it, so right? And he was so proud and happy.
Aww.
But I had a great time doing comedy. I started doing comedy when I was 40 or 41. And I had a house already and a dog.
A woman over 40 doing comedy. How
Yes.
dare you?
I knew. I looked very young, so right, and I dressed very young. And I was certainly not mature in any way. So right, and I was doing very, very well. And then a manager called me and said that they thought I could really do very, very well, and that they would like to manage me. And at that time, I was also studying for my test to be a therapist, which was a written test and an oral test, like the law test, very, very hard. And I also was teaching. Every comic wanted to be an actor, and I was going the wrong way up
you're
the
doing
stream.
the opposite.
I'm an actor being a comic. So I started teaching, so I was teaching all the comics to be an actor. And then I realized you really have to go and do comedy every single night, which is what I was doing. You got to. I did not have the time to do that and do everything else and be an actor. So at those times, people would come to the Improv and the Comedy Store, producers and management, and they would see a comic and love them, their persona and their personality, and they'd write a sitcom for them. This is what was happening. But then when the comic came in, they couldn't act.
Right.
So that was the horror. So they were quickly, their management would send them to me to learn how to act.
Yeah.
So, or at least
Emergency.
do the audition well.
Right.
So because that's what was happening. So be a comic who could also act was great. But I didn't want to be on the road, and I didn't want to do comedy every single night, and I wasn't 20, and I did.
And how hard was that being a woman doing that?
Well, it wasn't easy, and you really had to make friends with the MC and with the booker who booked, because you needed to get a good time.
Friends or wink, wink, nudge, nudge friends?
Well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge would be a really good time you'd get. So, right? So,
that'd really get you there.
And I don't nudge or wink, so you get it?
Yeah.
So, but I was doing pretty good. But then I had to make a decision. Am I going to devote my time to be a comic, which I loved doing, but I really, really, in my heart, wanted to pursue the acting, which I did all the time. I was in theater, I wrote, I did a one-woman show called my Psychotherapy Comeback Tour about a homeless therapist who used to be brilliant and had a little break in her mind.
Oh my God, I want to see that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put it back up and redo it. But and then I just started writing and directing and never stopped acting. So I did let the comedy go. Now, in my heart, I miss it, and I still think I should get back up and do it. But I just now am so entrenched in developing projects and writing and directing, filmmaking, and acting, teaching and coaching, that I just can't do it all.
It's too much.
Yeah.
But you can act. You can act comedy.
Yes. Oh, of course.
Now,
comedy and drama, yeah.
You just said you were taking your exam to be a psychotherapist.
Yes, I was a psychotherapist. And then I realized I needed to talk to myself. So, right.
So was that a side job you were going to do, or you did for a while?
That was another career I had. I loved being a psychotherapist. I worked at the Airport Marina Counseling Clinic to get 3,000 hours. I wasn't kidding around with this.
Yeah.
And I got my graduate degree, and I also studied, as I said, for my exams, which were written and oral and very hard. And I was a therapist for 6 years. And when I started being a therapist, I did not tell my clients I was also an actor. You know, you learn from your clients as well as they from you, because you're role modeling. And I'll never forget, I had a client, a fellow, and he came in once and he wasn't talking. And he didn't talk for quite a while. And then finally he said, "Are you my therapist or are you an actor?" And he had seen me on Cheers. I played Carla's reform school buddy. I looked like a hitter chick. And he said he was in bed with his girlfriend watching, and he screamed out, "Good God, that's my therapist!" And I was mortified inside, but outside I said, and I meant it, "I'm so glad you're telling me this, because I'm learning something, that when I have a client, I need to tell them I'm also an actor, that you may or may not see me." Hopefully you would, because I'd like to get some jobs. But that I do this, which takes nothing away from being a therapist. But if you do have a problem with it, let's talk about it. If you feel you want a different therapist, we'll talk about that. And, I said, so because you opened up and had the courage to tell me what was really going on, you have really helped me. So I realized that I had to say that, when I had a client.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense, the two coupled together, because as an actor, you're a student of human condition and you have all the empathy, and it makes such sense to be doing both.
Yeah.
Except that when you're on television, everyone can see you.
But I realized also I could save money not going to a therapist, because I could talk to myself.
Right.
And when I did talk to myself, I realized I was doing too many things. I had an antique store. I was a therapist. I was an actress. I was writing. I was doing stand-up. Too much.
Oh, for God's sake, pick something.
So I did everything in the same lane. Writing, directing, acting, producing, that all, and teaching and coaching. That is all in the same lane. Mm-hmm. So I had to sell the antique store, and I had to stop being a therapist. I had to. And I was sad about that. I really loved that. But you can't do everything.
You can't do everything.
And do it the best you can do it. That was the point,
And you were having success as an actor.
Yeah. And I really wanted to make film and create projects and direct.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you're also writing, directing, producing. How did you move into that?
Well, I was always writing. I wrote my stand-up. I wrote a one-woman show, my Psychotherapy Comeback Tour. So I was always writing. I was always in a writing class, and I wrote a film called Custody of Connie. And it was a feature film that I wrote. And I thought, it was so in me, I thought, I'd love to direct this. but I've directed theater, but not film. So I wrote a short film that would be my calling card on how to direct, and it's about a 36-year-old man with developmental disabilities who leaves the facility where he spent most of his life, and he takes his suitcase, and he takes his fears, and he takes his humor, and he meets his best friend who lives out, but used to be in the facility, to be his roommate and start a new life. So I wrote that short film, and I cast it with a blended cast. It was called Waiting for Ronald, and the guy who played Ronald had developmental disabilities. I taught him to act before we ever did the film. I taught him to act, and his best buddy, Edgar, was an actor who didn't have a disability. And then I had someone who was autistic and someone who had Down syndrome. This goes back years. Remember Bruno Kirby? He played the counselor. I did it on film, on 35, and I produced it, I wrote it, and I directed it. And of course I brought the bagels. And it was a wonderful film, and it showed him leaving the facility and taking a bus to meet his friend and what that entailed to both of them. And we had such a great time. Jody Clark played Ronald. He had he's like 6'7", 6'8". He was a gentle giant, and I taught him to act. And then Michael Luckerman, who was a wonderful actor with no disability, played Edgar. And it was great because I remember once when they all showed up to rehearse, because we rehearsed this beautifully. Prep is so important, you know. The more prep you do, because you're going to have problems that just come up, so you really have to be prepared. Anyway, and I remember when they came, I said, let's talk about anything that comes up concerning these parts and how you're going to work with each other and what you feel will hold you back, or any fears or good points, whatever. And I auditioned anyone with disabilities or who didn't have disabilities, didn't matter, anyone who was the best for the part. So Michael said, I have a fear because I don't have disabilities that I would do something that's wrong or in bad taste or make Jody feel bad, or I don't want to do that.
Legit fear.
Yes. Jody said, well, I'm not really an actor, so I have fears that Michael will think I'm not good enough and that I won't be good enough with him. I said, okay, I have a fear that I never directed before. So we all have the fear. So now that we discussed them, great. So now let's go and rehearse.
Get on with it.
Yeah. And it was the best. They became best friends. I said, I want you to go away for 2 weeks and become best friends, Ronald and Edgar. Not Michael and Jody, but Ronald and Edgar, the characters. And they both loved animals and rescued dogs. When they came to rehearse, they came as their characters, and they were fabulous. And it was like Mutt and Jeff. Jody was, I think, 6'7", 6'8", and Michael was quite short. So visually, it was perfect, and they were wonderful. And then Blair Williamson, who has a Down syndrome, came to audition for a part, and I actually wrote him a little part because he was so good. And Patrick Cooper, who's autistic, played a part. And everyone was wonderful. And Bruno played the counselor. And I wrote it for Bruno as the counselor. And I knew Bruno from the Actors Studio. And I didn't know him that well. But I called him up and I said, Bruno, I wrote a part for you, counselor, at this facility for the disabled, whatever. And I want to, at that time you would fax, you had a fax machine. So this is in 1805. And I said, I want to fax it to you and see what you think. Would you be open to it? At this time, anybody who had names didn't do short films. They didn't even know what short films were. But I was doing it on film, on 35. I was so happy. That was my dream. Anyway, the part that he would be playing, the counselor, in the feature, the counselor was very nurturing, overly, almost like a helicopter mom. He didn't have the courage to live his life, but he was very into protecting his people that he was there for. And I thought Bruno would be perfect, so I sent it to him. Bruno called and he said, I've never done a part like this. I'm so interested, but would my character let Ronald go to the bus by himself? Which was so perfect. I said, you're so perfect.
He's already in.
He's already in.
Yes.
And he was wonderful, and everybody loved him. And so we did it in Brea. We shot it in Brea. We had the best time.
Can we see this film?
My website, ellengerstein.com, it's called Waiting for Ronald. It's 21 minutes.
Okay.
It's international award winning.
And we'll link to it.
Okay, and that was my first directing, and I cannot tell you how many awards this film won. I won, and Jody was up for it as lead at festivals.
Fantastic.
And Jody would come with me. And then we took the film to different facilities that had the population of anyone who had some type of disability. And we would show the film, and I would Xerox different scenes from the film and let people do the scenes if they want to. And then we would talk to them about, well, what was your feeling about leaving the facility? What was your feeling about taking a bus? What was your feeling about saying goodbye to whatever? And their caretakers and parents these would be huge seminars.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I'm going to cry. Sometimes the parents would come up to me or their caretakers and say, I've never heard Anna talk like that. She's never expressed that. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that, and I loved it, with my background with
So
psychology and all.
satisfying.
Yeah, it was great. Except I couldn't keep doing it because I would lay out the monies to
Right.
travel and do it. I was supposed to get money. I didn't get that. My business head was turned around. Anyway, so that's that. And then with my filmmaking, I made a film called Come Away With Me. And that film, I adapted it from a play, a short play. And I produced it and adapted it, directed it, was in it, wrote the song for it, and brought the bagels.
So what can you not do?
I'm going to tell you something, and that was an international award-winning. Charlie Robinson. It was just me and Charlie. I just want to tell you this,
Yeah.
but and then I want to tell you something about that. Charlie was on. I don't know if you ever saw the sitcom Night Court. It was on. Yeah, he played the security guard, African American. I forget his name on Night Court, but everyone knows him. He's been in everything. He's fabulous. And what it is a woman goes back to her 50-year high school reunion in search of her high school love, who is the love of her life. But it's interracial, and it was in the South when she was in high school, so her parents sent her to the East to go to college to separate them.
Yeah.
He went to Vietnam. She comes back and finds out he's in a VA hospital because after Vietnam he had a lot of post-traumatic stress and now has Alzheimer's. But he looks incredible. I don't know if you know Charlie Robinson, but he looks incredible. So he's in great shape, and he's a wonderful guy and a brilliant actor. I know him from the Actors Studio. Never worked with him before. For like 20 years, it was always, hi, Charlie, how are you? Hi, Ellen, how are you? Good, thanks, okay. So then I thought, this part, I've never seen Charlie do a part like this. He's perfect because physically, he still reminds her of that high school love, but he can't put it quite together. Yeah. So it was fabulous. I took a bench from the Actors Studio and I put it down at, I forgot the school in Sunland, it's a school for people with disabilities, and they have a beautiful but not polished type of yard. It's romantic but a little wild. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just perfect. And we sit on this bench under a beautiful tree, and the film is Anne, who I play, trying to get Michael, who Charlie plays, to remember her. And she brings out the yearbook. And back in the day, when you went steady in high school, you wore your boyfriend's ring around your neck and you had a song together. That was what going together meant. And she would sort of sing the song and made him dance because they used to dance together, which reminds her of that love in high school. And anyway, so then at the end, she has to finally go. And he still hasn't quite remembered. He said, had we ever kissed at the end? And she goes, yes, and she kisses him like this. And then finally she leaves, and when she's walking down the hill, he remembers her, but only for a second. And then a train goes by, and he listens to the train because he's into the train. And she goes, and then the song that I wrote, that was their high school song, this girl from American Idol who was in my acting class belts it out. And the horn player from Earth, Wind, and Fire, he composed the music and stuff. Anyway, And she wails it out because when Anne leaves, all she has is that song and the memories.
This is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking and beautiful, and it was international award winning. We won so many awards with that. So my through line in everything I do, whether it's theater or film or projects that I create, has a tremendous sense of humanity. And it speaks to people. And in all sorts, whether you know someone who has Alzheimer's or post-traumatic stress or had a love affair that you didn't work out but wanted, whatever it is, it's there. And that's what I love to do.
Yeah, that's
But I want to
delicious.
just say one thing. When you said, what can you not do? I feel, and this happened later in life that I had this feeling, you can do whatever you want to do. If you've never done it before, you'll learn as you do. You do the best you can do your research, do your this or that, and just do it. I had never written a song. I write a lot of poetry. But I was walking my dogs. I'm a big animal lover. I'm walking my dogs and I'm saying to myself, Michael and Ann have to have a song. Because back in the day, you had a song. And I wrote the song in my head while I'm walking the dogs. And now I have to get the dogs back to the house while I still remember the song.
Before you lose it.
So it was great. When I wrote the song, I sent it to some singers to see how they would do it. And then Holly Kavanaugh, who was, I think, number 4 on American Idol a couple of years ago, very, very young. And this song is vintage because it's way back from the day. So it has to have that Otis Redding-ish, Etta James-ish, back in the day type of, you have to have real instruments, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got to be vintage sounding, heartfelt. None of this new echoey whatever.
It's not electronica.
No. And so Holly came in after class and she said, I heard you wrote a song. Can I hear it? And the girl who composed the music was fabulous, Catherine Joy, and she was great. She got that music that, and I said, and she sang it. She said, I'm not a singer, but just to show you how the words and the music go together. And so Holly heard it and she said, I've got to sing it. She's very heartfelt and soulful, and she sang it. Now I had to go into the studio and have it all put together with the music and the whole thing and stuff. So she introduced me to a manager she had, a young guy. I would say he was in his early 30s. I'm much older. So I have a meeting with him, and I explain to him what it is and the film and heart and soul and blah, 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 vintage and boop, boop, boop. And I send him music that has the feel of it. And Bruno Mars did a song with just an organ and a piano, and it was very, I let that sound in, that vintage. So I sent him an Otis and this and that. And, I go back. So, yeah, I understand. I know what you want, this, that, and the other. I'm going to bring an age now, okay? So we go to the studio. I don't see any musicians, I see the board and stuff. I've never done this before, you have to understand. And I say, this has to have a oh yeah, don't worry. And he sends me the first pass at it. And I realize he thinks, I'm some old lady who wrote a song. Yeah. And I hate to bring that up, but that's exactly what was happening.
He's patting you on the head.
Yeah. Okay, you wrote a song, old lady. Here it is.
Get out of the way. We'll do it now.
Yeah, this is fast, this is easy, this is what we do now.
Yeah.
This is today. So I called him up. I was outraged.
Yeah.
I'm very easy to get along with. I was so outraged. The lack of respect, and appreciation for what I'm trying to say with that song. Yeah. It is the through line in the film, because it starts with a little bit of me sort of mouthing it, and when we dance, sort of singing it. I'm not a singer, so I'm just trying to give him the memory.
Yeah,
it's
the
memory.
Background music.
It's the love. And at the end, when Holly belts it out, but the lack of appreciation and respect for me, for the song, for what it's saying, I was outraged. And I got on that phone and I told him, and I said, how dare you send me this? After hours and hours of me sending you music and explaining to you and how you negated everything, the respect of the song and me, but of the song, of the film, of everything.
Just the disregard.
I can't tell you what that did to me. And that was really against the wall of who I was, an old woman, let's say. I don't feel I'm an old woman. I never feel that. But of what I thought was going on in the lack of respect of the whole project. You know what? Don't do it then. Say, you know what? That's not how I do things. I do things in today, and I don't do that type of music. Then tell me the truth. Don't take my money. And I paid a lot of money. I brought in Ralph Guzzo, who's a brilliant actor and musician, and came, he stays, I don't sleep too much, because then you have to wake up again, what's the point? But anyway, I don't go to sleep till very, very late. And Ralph lives near me, and he'd do his thing at night, and then he'd call me about 12:31 in the morning. And he'd say, I can come in and listen to music now. I'd say, come in. Until about 3, we would listen to all the sounds that I'd like, the guitar sounds, the drums, the vintage sound, the organ, the piano, this person, that person, until he knew exactly. And he loved it because he's not quite my age, but he's coming there. So right in, he's coming.
He'll get there.
He's coming soon. He was fabulous, and he was passionate about it, and he just had what I wanted.
Yeah.
Thank God. If it wasn't for him, forget it. So anyway, then Ralph got in touch with a sax player who got us in touch with a horn player, Eric Luis Gonzalez, who also has a friend, Alberto Ruiz. And we went to a guy's little place, someplace, I don't know where it was, like in a garage, which is exactly what I wanted, not a big studio. And they did the horns, and they did this. And the guy that was handling the board didn't know English, so I would put my thumb up if it's exactly what I want, sideways if it's almost there, down if not. Perfect.
Yeah.
Everything was from the gut, from the heart. I was so excited I can't even tell you. So
you're like, that's how it's done.
Exactly. And Ralph was fabulous, put it all together for me. He had his own studio in his garage, which was perfect. And we banged out the greatest song ever. And that's what happened. But that's what was meeting someone who didn't care and thought I was just some old woman that wrote a song.
That's just ageism. Like, that makes him a fool.
Yeah.
If I may be so frank.
Yeah. Well, that makes him just there for the money, I think, When I directed Waiting for Ronald, which was my first, I don't know how old I was then. I'm not good with time. Maybe almost 20, 15, something like that. So I wasn't young then. And I would say I was certainly older than the DP and the camera. And but so what? So anyway, it doesn't bother me. But I remember taking the DP aside and telling him that we are working together on this. We are married for this project. I love your work, and I know you love this project, or you wouldn't sign on. So don't look at me at anything but the director, your partner, and that's it. Because I have some feelings. I see something going on here, and I don't like those feelings. So I'm very positive and passionate, and so are you. So let's just merge those feelings and have the best time and make the best film.
And did that nip it in the bud?
Yeah, that nipped it in the bud.
You just got to call it out, really.
You got to, but take it aside and make it positive, but you know that it's there and that it can't be there. And there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
We're passionate. We want it, and he was a fabulous DP and a wonderful person. And we had the best time. We did the best film. I love that film.
I can't wait to go see it.
Well, I'm going to send you the link to Waiting for Ronald and Come Away With Me.
Yeah.
Waiting for Ronald's 21 minutes, okay, in 49 seconds. And Come Away With Me is 16 minutes, okay, in 21 seconds. I'm very proud of them.
Good, yeah. I can't wait. Tell me, what do you think it takes to have a long career as an actor?
That's such a good question. I think, first of all, you can do more than acting if you want to. You can produce, you can direct, you can write. I do all of it. I create projects for TV, for kids, for adults, theater, all of it. So years ago, you could only, if you're an actor, you're an actor. If you're a film actor, you're a film actor. It doesn't cross to TV. If you're a TV actor, you don't do film. Forget all those boundaries and lines. Ridiculous. You do anything you want to do. If your passion is there, you've got to be passionate, because believe me, it's not easy. So if you could do anything else, I say do it. But
people always say that, and young actors do not want to hear it.
No.
I remember that they said that to me in acting class, and we're all like, "Oh, come on, that's the worst." It is the truest statement in the world.
It's the truest statement. If you can, and not pushing anyone to do anything else, but if you want to do something else, or you have the inclination, do it. If you want to make money, do something else. If you want security, do something else.
If you want a 401k.
Yes, right, exactly. If you want a savings account. So anyway, but if your passion is there, and believe me, I've done a million other things, but this is what I want to do. This is what I have to do.
That's
have to do. This is what I have to do. Then you do it, and you do whatever it takes to do it.
I think that's the piece. We were talking a little bit when we were making the coffee.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough to be a great actor.
No.
You have to have that drive and that burning.
You also have to know how to take rejection, and it's not easy.
It's brutal.
I remember my sister saying to me, how can you be an actor? How can you take all that rejection? And I thought, oh my God, how do I take all that rejection? This sounds terrible. So
Because it's not personal, but it's personal.
It's personal. They always say it's not. And I remember many a time being in the hallway of an apartment that I had on Sierra Bonita in the fetal position with cookie crumbs coming out of my mouth, sobbing. I remember many a time like that.
But Ellen, it's not personal.
Yeah, right, exactly. With the call from the agent or manager saying, no, it's nothing that you were wonderful. Wonderful. Of course, they're going a different way, but you were wonderful, so don't feel bad. And you could just hear little moans like, oh, oh.
It's devastating.
Right. Or if I've had a bad audition, or one that I think I didn't get the job, whatever, I would call my manager and say these words, and then she would know not to say anything about it. I just called to tell you I'm leaving now to open a small boutique in Arizona that does nothing but sell bell bottoms, and talk to you later. So, right?
You just gently cross it off the list.
Do not talk to me about it. And I remember once, this was a funny. Well, I should tell you, the longevity is passion for it, being able to take rejection, and also being able to deal with the business of it, getting an agent, getting a manager, whatever representation, and doing that. Doing what it takes. Don't sit on a couch and wait for a phone to ring. Those days were over many years ago. You must do. You must be on the internet. You must do your own whatever it is. Short film, podcast, webisode. All those. We didn't have any of that when I was coming up. You didn't tape anything yourself and do. You've got to do it now. If you're starting out, Actors Access and this, that, and the other, you can submit yourself. You don't have to wait on anything. But you have to have, not just be a wonderful actor, you have to have the drive, the get up and go, a self-starter. If you don't know how to do it, you'll learn how to do it. And you have to have all that. And if you don't and know about the business, I teach about the business in my acting class. And in fact, I just said I got to tell them how to tape, because I'm seeing some tapes that don't look so good when they send them out. So you have to know everything. You have to be your own boss and do it.
You're a whole business.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, that's not good.
Good luck to you. Good luck.
And you want to know something? You're not a failure if you can't do it. You can't think of yourself like that. It's a whole big round circle, and you're part of all of it. And if you can't do that, you can do something else. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to do that if you absolutely can't. And like I said, I had friends who are brilliant actors, but they can't do the other. They can't deal with the business. They can't take rejection. They will not make a phone call. They are not so they do other things. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's what it is.
Right. But the hiring casting director, producer is not coming to your scene study class. pluck you out.
No, you have to put it out there. I remember this goes back in the day, we used to do showcases. But whatever you do has to be the best you can do. Do not do something half-assed. If you're going to do something, look, you need a reel. You must have a reel, because you're tying the hands of your manager or agent if you don't have a reel. You have to have the best reel you can have. So it'll get better as you go down the pike, but try to do the best you can do. Put it together. Don't wait till someone says, you have a reel? No, I don't have a reel. Have everything that you need to have and do the best you can, and it's fun. It's part of the process. And process is fun. You have to make it fun.
I mean, you got to enjoy the process, otherwise you're going to be
or else
miserable.
it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
Now, what do you make of what has happened with women in the last year in this business? Me Too happened. It feels like the women in Hollywood all put their foot down on the same day and said things must be different.
Well, let me approach that a couple of different ways. First of all, since I'm also a director, the population of women directors that get work is slim.
So small.
I think less than it used to be. I think it's going backwards.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. That's a horror. There's no reason for that, except that people don't want to give them jobs. That's why a lot of people are developing their own projects.
Because it's not that the women aren't ready or skilled or
Oh,
talented.
no. It has nothing to do.
That.
You know, I belong to a wonderful association called AWD, Alliance of Women Directors. Fabulous women. Oh, my God.
Yes, they are.
All types, directors, and sound, everything. You can do everything. And when I work on a project, I hire almost all women, or if I can do all women, I do.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very conscious of that. So you have to keep trucking and keep having projects where you hire women. The Me Too harassment, is that what we're getting at here now?
Sure.
The harassment.
I think it all goes together.
Yeah, it all goes together. Of Me Too, of not wanting to be harassed, Me Too, wanting to work, all of it. I was thinking about me in the Me Too. I remember when I was younger, much younger, having one or two incidents that were uncomfortable for me, that I just walked out of the office. It was, I wasn't forced to do anything. I was asked to do something, and then that was, time to go home.
Oh, thank you. Look at the time.
Yeah, time to go home. It's weird. When I was growing up, when I was very young, my mother said if I was ever in trouble, just yell out, I think I hear my mother calling. And which I did do a couple of times. And I did remember that in certain incidents where I would say, I gotta go,
Yeah.
So I am very, very happy, excited about women speaking out. Because no one should have to take any type of harassment to get a job.
Right?
When you say it, it sounds so...
It sounds so stupid.
Yeah, so horrible, oh my God. And it's been happening for so long. And it's so wonderful that women speak out that their careers were shortened and stopped because they didn't go along with it. And now it's so wonderful because the brave women that started this and started to talk opened the doors for every woman to walk through and say what happened. It's so necessary, and it's so overdue, and I hope it never stops.
Yeah.
And women taking care of women is a wonderful thing. Not being jealous, not being, there's healthy competition, but not keeping another woman down because you're afraid of them getting power.
Right, because of scarcity.
Yeah, that particular thing has to stop. I mean, it's out there. Men thinking their control, which they have been doing, has to stop. It's really who's the best for the job.
Yeah, let's get there.
Who's the best qualified for the job? Who has the mindset for that particular job? Because you could be a brilliant whatever, but that particular job is not for you. Who gets along with people, who's easy to work with, no matter who they are. That's who should get the job. And it's a very exciting time.
It is an exciting time.
In the 60s, I was very big on marching I went to school in the South, and Athens was actually segregated when I came, and I started Georgia Students for Human Rights, and we marched. The KKK was on one side of the street, and Georgia Students for Human Rights were on, and we integrated that town. I'm very proud of that. And I hadn't seen for so long the power of the people, because people have power. And we didn't have the internet then, but people had power. You know, you can boycott things, you can march, and it's all coming back now. And it's thrilling time because you can be heard and you can leave a mark. And if there's a business or a whatever company that isn't doing right by anybody, racially, women, whatever.
We can all know about it in a minute.
And boycott their ass.
Yeah.
Right.
But then how is it then to see the KKK marching in the streets again? Are you like, we have fought this shit already?
I know. But you know what? It's always there. It's always there. And now, I must say, with politics the way they are, and who's in office, makes it more okay. It's never okay, but they feel to be heard and seen and take power.
Yeah.
And they're very strong, and we must keep that away and down and not let them be powerful.
That's bananas.
It's much worse. It's a nightmare, and it's threatening, and it's horrible, and it's dangerous, and it's inhumane, and it's murder is happening, and it's got to stop. I mean, the people have power.
Yeah.
Must band together and do everything that we can do.
It feels like we are. I'm talking with friends, and we're all a little shocked how everyone has become an activist because it feels like we have to.
Absolutely, it's a must. It's the 60s being relived again,
Yeah.
where the people realize they have the power and they must do everything and anything that they can do. Banding together is very necessary. Supporting what needs to be supported has to be. So I'm very excited about that. But it's a very threatening time. It's a very frightening time.
Yeah.
And it's a very inhumane time.
And I think thrilling at the same time.
Yeah.
To see how people are
How
coming
people
up.
are coming together and being there for other people, which is what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, it really has to be about support, humanity, love. That's what it's all about. And that's what life is. That's what it's about, I think.
That's it.
And I think any project you do has to have some type of element of that. Some type of element of that.
I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, connecting with people, not having people feel isolated in their life, having some type of connection. That's so important. In every project I do, that is so important. And people come up to me, and I get people. It's amazing, and it makes me feel incredible that they feel connected to this, or they don't feel so isolated, or they feel understood, or whatever. And that's really what life should be about.
Right. Then you've done your job.
Yeah, I think anyway.
Okay, what advice do you have for women who are just starting out?
Okay. First of all, yay! Congratulations. Keep on trucking. Sounds so easy, but so necessary. Listen, if you're beaten down, kiss your wounds and start marching out there again with what you need to do. Reignite your passion when it wanes a little bit. And get out there and be around people who are supportive. Don't buy into negativity. Know something. If you really want to do something bad enough, you'll do it. Get around people that can help you, that have done it before, that will help you, or have the same passion you do, and you do it together at first. It doesn't matter. Just do it. Look what Nike just did.
Wasn't that beautiful?
Oh my God. First of all, I love him, Colin.
Yeah, so we're recording this on the day that the Colin Kaepernick campaign came out.
Yes. And you know what? On Facebook, I read so much negativity. I'll never buy Nike again. Or who ba 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 ba. So there's always going to be that. So what?
So what?
Buy more Nike than you would have. Because Nike has balls. So
That's right.
They have balls to do what they did. And it's a sign. It's a sign of support, which is what I'm talking about, support. He had such incredible guts, Colin, and integrity, and stand up for what's right.
And
no
sacrifice.
Matter,
and they gave him a job.
Yeah. Yep.
It's great.
So, and this is happening now. Talk about so exciting about what's happening and thrilling. That was thrilling.
Yeah.
That was thrilling.
Like, what a stand. You are going to be on the right side of history. Stand up for what is right.
And keep standing. If you stumble, get back up.
So it's a roller coaster. Expect it's a roller coaster.
Exactly. And keep going. Keep on trucking. It's important for you, and it's important for everybody. So that's what I have to say. And do things the best you can do them.
Is there anything I did not ask you about that I should have asked you?
No, I just want to say that I'm continuing to do projects, to write projects, like I said, for kids, for adults, for theater, for TV, for film. And by saying that, what I am saying is you are never too old. You are never too anything. Keep on going. This isn't just for the young women starting out. This is for any woman. If you feel like you want to retire, that's fine. You certainly don't have to. You keep on doing and feel young at heart with your passion. And that's very, very important. Don't feel thrown aside, no matter what society says or does or people say or do. You know who you are. You keep on trucking. That's what I think.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I'm so excited.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, a Her Story of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Ellen Gerstein for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms, and also go subscribe to Exit 38 and The Kiss My Age Show. Thanks for listening. See you next time.